Hey guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with some 5-star historical romance recommendations. These are all historical romances I've read within the past 2 months that are 5 stars. A couple of them are 4.5, but I decided to include them anyways because I just want to share all of the historical romances that I've been super excited about that I've read that are really good. Some are a little bit older, some are newer releases, so I will go ahead and get to my favorites that I've read recently. The first one I just finished this morning, and it is Promise of a Kiss by Casey Bateman. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you know I've been obsessing over this. It made me want to rewatch The Mummy, so I did. This one's a novella, and it's Kate Bateman. This is her independently published book, and it takes place in Egypt. Our heroine and our hero hate each other. They have a past, which is developed off page. We are dumped into when they've been hating each other for years. The hero had even kissed her and proposed to her because he kissed her, and she said, no, absolutely not, I would never marry you. They hate each other, but they have been in each other's lives for a long time. So the hero's aunt, who is kind of but not really related to the heroine, she's like distantly related, she wants the heroine to come back home. So she tells the hero, I will give you £5,000 if you bring her back to London. The hero's like, I need the money, let's go. So he goes to Egypt and tracks her down. She is a map maker, so a cartographer. She is currently making a map that her uncle had started, and she finds this item, and I don't want to spoil what it is, and it is said to be cursed, and someone steals it and wants to give it to someone else, and so they go on a hunt for it after them to get that item back, and it's so good. There's a lot of tension between them, and even though it's a novella, so much was packed into here, and it just made me get all the Mummy vibes. So if you love The Mummy and you like historicals that don't take place in London, check this one out. Then I picked up Dare to be a Duchess because Rachel from Rachel Reads and Sings had this in her April TBR, and I'd never seen it before, and I was like, yes, a half British, half Indian heroine. That sounds amazing. We don't get a lot of diversity with our main characters in historical romances, and then this is a Regency romance. It's in London. They go to balls. They're worried about who they're going to marry, so I picked it up on audio. My Hoopla had it, and it was so good. This is one I gave 4.5 stars because I will get to that. So our heroine's best friend's brother is the hero, and our heroine and her best friends go to a scandalous ball because her best friend wants to meet up with a man that she loves. And so the hero gets wind of it, and he's like, absolutely not. So he shows up, and to distract our hero from finding his sister, the heroine kisses him. And it sparks off these things and these feelings, though the hero's very brooding and he's so angry at what happened, and he realizes she was distracting him after the fact. And so he decides to announce that they all have to get married. Our heroine, the best friend, which is his sister, and another heroine all have to get married in 6 months or he's gonna find a husband for them. So they're like, obviously we don't want you to pick our husband, we want to choose our own husbands. And so the heroine, though, is very looked down upon and judged by society because of her background and because of the scandal of her parents, and so she knows no one wants to marry her, and she would rather go out of the ton to find someone to marry, and she keeps on butting heads with the hero over it, but then they start having these little meetings, and it is just such a good historical romance. I really liked it. Our hero does say some mean things to her when he's trying to push her away. He's very brooding. His own father passed away due to a scandal, so he's trying to keep scandal away from his family, and it's just so good. I really, really love this one. I hope you guys check it out. I think it went on a little too long, and I didn't think the hero groveled enough after what he said to her. That's why I gave it 4.5 stars, but I can't wait to read book 2. Definitely an author to check out. The next 2 I read in a reading vlog, so I'll link that down below. But the first one is Night Secrets by Kat Martin. This is one that's an old school one that I absolutely ended up loving. Our heroine wants to live life. She is tired of living in this tavern with her abusive father, so she decides to go aboard a ship without them knowing, and our hero is the captain of that ship, and days later he realizes that she's there, and he is very touch her and you die because someone on the ship tries to touch her, and he is like, absolutely not, that is not gonna fly. It is a romance that is very aware of what is okay and not okay when treating women. So our hero hates that her father's abusive towards her. He hates when men touch her without her permission, and so he's very protective over her, and they fall in love on the ship. But he is someone who is adamant that his life is on the sea. He's like, I can never get tied down by a woman because I'm never gonna be home. My life is a captain. It's my one love. But then an accident happens and he loses the use of his legs, and he is devastated and so angry and just does not want to see anybody. He returns home with where his brother lives. His brother has been taking on the responsibilities while our hero's been at sea, and our heroine confronts him, and she is like, I want to be there for you, and our hero constantly pushes her away, but it is just such a beautiful romance. I really, really love this one. About half of it takes place on sea, and the other half is when our hero is devastated that he won't be able to be a captain anymore because of his injury, and it's amazing. I loved it. I cannot wait to read more by this author, and it has this gorgeous iconic setback. Then, speaking of iconic, I finally picked up Dreaming of You, and yes, it is in this video because yes, this is an automatic 5-star read. So I do have the gorgeous first edition. This was $19.99, this one was $19.94, and this one's Derek Craven. He is absolutely amazing. He's another damaged hero, and he did not have a really great upbringing whatsoever. He grew up in a brothel, and he has admitted to resorting to sex work in order to have money for himself as well, and so he is now a self-made man. He is very, very successful, and our heroine's actually a writer, which I love reading about writers, especially during this time period, and she has wanted to get experiences for a new novel she's working on, so she's going to Derek's gambling hell in order to figure out how gambling works and like what people do when they gamble, and she sees something happening and she decides to intervene, even though she's a woman and should not be involving herself in dangerous situations like that during this time period. But she meets Derek, and there's an instant attraction between them, but Derek pushes her away because he feels like he does not deserve love. He feels like people are just going to leave him, but then there's a scandalous ball that happens where she is in disguise, but people are like, ooh, who is this? She is so enticing, and Derek is really angry with her when he realized that she was there, so he's very protective over her as well, and it is just so good. I really love this one. I can see why everybody loves it. Like, Derek is just so head over heels for her, but will not admit that he loves her, and it's very sad, especially at the end where he is overwhelmed with his feelings for her, and I just can't recommend this enough. I definitely understand why people love it. The next one I wish has been out yet, but it's not, but I absolutely loved it. It's coming out soon. It is The Bride Goes Rogue by Joanna Shupe. This one is her newest book. I love The Lady Gets Lucky, and so this one is the third one, and our heroine has assumed that she has been betrothed to our hero for about a year now. Their fathers set up the arrangement. They actually like signed papers and everything, so it's all good to go, right? She decides to confront him at his office. He works with like buildings for money, and she confronts him and she's like, hey, like, we gotta plan our wedding, and he's like, what wedding? We're not getting married. I'd never marry you, because he absolutely hates her father, because he blames her father for his father's death and what happened during his father's death, and so she is horrified. She's like, I've waited an entire year to marry you. She is embarrassed and she is angry, and she's like, you know what? Screw you. I hate you. I would never marry you anyways. I'm leaving. So she leaves, and she decides she wants to have an affair. She's like, I want to experience the world. I'm gonna have an affair. So she goes to a very scandalous ball with a friend and wants to have an affair there, and she does, and things go on from there. The hero and the heroine definitely really hate each other, which causes a lot of more angst and tension between them, and our heroine is very passionate about art. She wants to open up her own art museum, and I just really love this one. Definitely very steamy too, which is great with Joanna Shupe's romances, so when this comes out, you have to pick it up. Then another one that was pleasantly surprising is The Devil's Own Duke by Lenore Bell. I loved Love is a Rogue, which is the first book in the series. This one, I shouldn't have been surprised. I loved it so much. So our heroine's father actually inherits a dukedom. People died, he got it, and he's like, I don't want this. He is going to be required to remarry because she's an only child, and he's like, I need an heir. So she's like, you gotta get married, Dad. He doesn't want to because he's actually in love with someone else, but that's another story. So they go to this ball, and at this ball, when the dad is supposed to choose someone to marry, this guy shows up, who's our hero, and he's like, I am a long lost relative, and things had happened at his birth, and he was whisked away, and it was all very like scandalous. He was actually born to someone who was supposed to inherit the dukedom, and so he's like, I'm next in line, and the dad's like, yes, awesome, you go take the dukedom, I don't even want it. The heroine's a little bit more skeptical. She's like, who are you? Are you just trying to take this over for the money? What's going on? And he actually has a reason he wants the dukedom. He was raised on the streets, and he's very protective over young boys who are orphans who are raised on the streets, and so he puts his money towards them, and it's very sweet, but he butts heads a little bit with the heroine because she also has a vineyard, and she is very passionate about her wines, and he's wanting to replace that with horses so that he can make more money, like raising horses. And he's like, the vineyard's not very profitable, I want to do this, but then they strike up a deal, and there's more stuff that goes on in here that I don't want to spoil for you, but it was so good. I really enjoyed this one, and there's a trope that I love in here as well, and he just really shows her that he wants to be there for her and really loves her at the end, and I just loved what he did for her, and this was just just a really fun take on historical romance with that whole plot where he's coming to take the dukedom and like the dad's happy about it, and so now he's part of her life. And I just really love Lenora Bell, and I can't wait to read more from her. Then I have The Lady Tempts an Heir by Harper St. George. This one just came out this year. It's book 3 and is my favorite of the series. Our hero and our heroine actually met in the previous book because the heroine's best friend with his sister, and the sister ran off. Stuff happened, okay? I don't want to spoil book 2, but they end up trying to like rescue the sister together. He's never forgotten about her. She's never forgotten about him. Nothing happened because like they were too worried about the sister, but they know they have like a really special connection. And so they both need to get married. They need a fiance because our heroine has this charity for single mothers in society that she's very passionate about, but she's not taken seriously because she's a single woman. She is a widow now, and so she needs someone to kind of like give her a better reputation so that people will donate. His father's giving him an ultimatum that he needs to marry or he's going to be taken out of the company. So they both decide to have a fake engagement in order to get what they want from society, him from his father, her from society of having donations, and they end up falling in love with each other, and it's so sweet. Our heroine is infertile, so that is a huge part of this because she doesn't want to burden any man, because in this time period it's very important to have children to pass on your name and your title and your money to, and so she feels like she can't marry our hero because she can't give him a son. But that definitely comes into play, and it's not like the ending is like she miraculously has a baby. No, she actually is infertile, which I appreciated. There's no miscarriage or anything in here. She just knows she can't have children because she never had children in her previous marriage, and it's because she can't. So I really like that aspect about here. I'm really happy that they kept her not having children because I really don't love it when books do that, and this was just really good and I could not get enough of this couple. The next one's probably surprising, but I reread it and it's a 5-star read for me, and that is The Viscount Who Loved Me by Julia Quinn. When I first read this, I wasn't the biggest fan of Anthony. I gave it 4 stars. I liked the romance enough, but Anthony was a little annoying. But now that I've watched I reread this before season 2 came out. So after watching Anthony in the first season, I loved his character. I love a damaged hero. He's so angry and mad at the world. And so knowing Jonathan Bailey in my head as Anthony just sold this book for me. I love his and Kate's banter and the tension between them. Kate's relationship with her sister. I didn't even tell you what this is about. Do you guys know what this is about? I feel like you know what this is about. This is Bridgerton book 2. So Anthony needs to find a wife, and he decides to go after like the diamond of the season, which is Edwina, which is Kate's sister. Edwina and Kate are having a season together because their family is not that wealthy, so they are finally having enough money for them both to come to London to have a season. Kate is determined to have her sister have a good marriage, and everybody knows Edwina will not get married to someone unless they have her sister's approval. Everyone at the balls wants to impress Kate, including Anthony, and so Anthony is like determined to marry the sister, but quickly falls for Kate. There is no love triangle in here. And I loved the whole plot of this. There's a marriage of convenience again, and I loved Kate's whole relationship with her mother, and they both have PTSD over different things. She's terrified of thunderstorms, he's terrified of bees, and he's terrified of dying young. Those are things that were left out of the show that I absolutely loved in here, and they bonded really greatly over that. There's one point where Anthony actually comforts Kate through an episode where there's a thunderstorm in the library. It is just so good. I love this. I gave it 5 stars on my reread, and I just can't get enough. And the last one I have is actually Marriage in Trouble, and that is The Devil's Submission. In this one, our hero and heroine are married, and our heroine's mother is in charge of this like school for debutantes kind of thing. Like she helps women out in society, and she tells her daughter, she's like, you're very embarrassing because your marriage is falling apart and you're disgraceful. And so our heroine is tired of that, and she's like, you know what, fine, I'm gonna go and tell my husband we need to have a true marriage. So she goes to London, and she's determined to learn what's wrong and how to be better for him. And he actually owns a club, one of those clubs, and he needs things from the club, and our heroine is like, I want to be there for you, I'm gonna learn for you. And it is such a good historical romance. The whole series is great. This is book 2. Book 2 was my favorite. Book 1, she wants to get ruined so she doesn't have to get married to someone, and book 3, it's a second chance romance between 2 childhood lovers, like they were in their teens and they were ripped apart and now they are coming back together. So the series is great, but I really love this one. And those are my recent 5-star historical romance reads. Let me know if you've read any of these or what your last 5-star reads were that are historical romances. I would really love to hear, and that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day.